joining me with my launch of this new program, which will be broadcasting live and archived Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time. I'm a little bit early right now, and I'm not going to be doing a full program tonight. I'm just in the experimental stages at this point. The program will officially launch on January the 1st of next year. In the meantime, I'm preparing various modalities to help promote the program and reach larger and wider groups of live streamers and some of the technical matters. I want to note that next Monday night, tomorrow night, I will be joined by Jay Dyer, the author of Esoteric Hollywood and Esoteric Hollywood Part 2, who is a very well-informed and erudite figure. He knows all about the most recent machinations of the World Economic Forum, the World Order, the internationalist, elitist entity, which basically covers political, cultural, economic, and even religious institutions at the top levels, and which is, of course, the evidence that we are struggling with now. We are discussing the nature of it, what we can expect, what we can do to retain our sovereignty as individuals under God, and why, and all the whys in the hows. I'm going to be having various guests on to discuss these issues and other issues in the coming weeks and months. And I'm looking forward to doing it late night because, first of all, I think there might be a little less censorship, frankly, but also, and that might be wishful thinking on my part, but also I'm developing a broader number of live streams and archive sites. And once I get my feet wet with all the technology involved, and it's amazing technology, then I'm going to gradually launch the program and build an audience and develop this experience as a live experience where you and I and my guests can interact with each other, can engage in conversation, and can look at issues with some depth. In the interest of that, since I'm live right now, let me give out the phone number, and you're welcome to call in if you happen to be listening. 617-396-4958. That's 617-396-4958. Now, Archbishop Maria Vagano, Carlo Maria Vagano, has been just writing some sensational things. And I think it's particularly interesting as we enter into the Christmas season to note that he's calling on people of faith to unite in a worldwide anti-globalist alliance to free humanity from the totalitarian regime. Now, I'm going to read a little bit of this as an article in the Gateway Pundit. And I'm not staying on long. I just want to touch base here because I'm trying to get consistency on a nightly basis here and build up, frankly, the energy to do it. Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano appealed to Catholics, Christians, and people of faith to unite against the dark forces of globalism. Archbishop Vigano sent the Gateway Pundit, which I'm reading from, a video and appeal for an anti-globalist alliance. Now, you can check out this video on the Gateway Pundit. He says, this anti-globalist alliance will have to bring together the nations that intended to escape the infernal yoke of tyranny and affirm their own sovereignty, forming agreements of mutual collaboration with nations and peoples who share their principles and the common yearning for freedom, justice, and goodness. It will have to denounce the crimes of the elite, identify those responsible, denounce them to international tribunals, and limit their excessive power and harmful influence. It will have to prevent the action of the lobbies, above all, by fighting against the corruption of state officials and those who work in the information industry, and by freezing the capital used to destabilize the social order. The whole pandemic issue is instrumental to the Great Reset. Now, the Great Reset is, of course, the term that was coined by Carl Schwab, who is the founder and director of the World Economic Forum, in which he seeks to basically create a world order that falls on the same lines as world order conspirators have developed ever since the Illuminati, and even for as far back as ancient times. And that is to find a modern means by which to control the high ground of the world, the financial, the political, the cultural, and the religious high ground. And except the crisis we're dealing with now, in many ways in this regard, is more dangerous, more corrupt, and potentially more immoral than the conspirators who launched 2 world wars, that launched the Holocaust against the Jews of Europe, that launched depressions and inflations and economic cycles that have ripped off working men and women in the world, and that have slowed down genuine growth and progress, and other methodologies and means by which people have been lost their freedom or have been hoodwinked into surrendering their freedom, which is even worse. Now, the conspirators, and I do use that word, have modern technology at their fingertips that is as dangerous as the nuclear bomb in a way. And that is embodied by this movement called transhumanism, the Internet of Things, virtual reality, and other methodologies that, while in and of themselves may be interesting in certain aspects, when controlled by the wrong people for the wrong reasons, can further exacerbate and accelerate a move toward a world order that will turn the entire planet into a servile ant colony. Now, you think I'm exaggerating? We're going to get into it as the coming months go on, and I'm having guests lined up who are going to continue to talk about this and other topics. I mean, I discussed general news. Now, again, I'm not going to stay on here, so I just want to talk a little bit about a local story here in Boston. That's where I am, and I'm hoping to build a Boston-based audience as well as a national and international audience here. And that is that Adam Riley from WGBH is doing a once-a-week program on Friday on Boston and Massachusetts politics. And we recently had an announcement by Republican Governor Charlie Baker and his Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito that he would not be seeking a third term. Now, Charlie Baker has been promoted endlessly by liberals as the most popular governor in America. He's beloved. He's great. He gets along with everyone. In other words, he's liberal. And Charlie Baker publicly refused and stated that he did not support or would not vote for President Donald Trump in 2016 election. He's a Republican governor who came out against Trump and actually said he wouldn't vote for him. He said he would leave the ballot blank, is how he put it. And I remember Jeff Cooner, talk show host here in Boston, said, "Blank you, Charlie," which I thought was a pretty apt remark. And Baker has had a few scandals, but he remains the darling of the Globe and the elite liberal corrupt establishment in Massachusetts. And all of a sudden, shock of shocks, he announced that he's not running for re-election. And nor is his lieutenant, Karen Polito. They're going to be finishing their term next year. Well, Adam Riley at WGBH, doing his pretty good show, has noted that his opponent, Jeff Deal, who is a fairly mild-mannered and milquetoast Republican himself, but has a few conservative scruples, was endorsed by President Trump. And that Jeff Deal was ahead of Charlie Baker by a landslide margin in a recent poll. It was like 50-30. And then when they asked the voters, were they aware of the fact that President Trump had endorsed Jeff Deal? The margin went up. It was 57 to like 25 in favor of Deal. Now, this is I find this to be very interesting. And this is why I would think Charlie Baker has stepped down from running for re-election. He can't beat Jeff Deal. And Jeff Deal obviously is popular because he's been endorsed by President Trump. And not only that, but Jeff Deal, in recent press releases, has touted the endorsement and has mentioned it numerous times, is proud of it, as is elements of the Massachusetts Republican Party. Now, does this mean that and by the way, the Boston Globe just wrote a scathing epitaph for the Massachusetts Republican Party, where they interviewed some real rhinos and they were like, oh, the party's dead, it's finished, it's over. But I wonder from these polls, and I don't have any firsthand information here, if Donald Trump MAGA people have taken over the party. Now, Steve Bannon from the War Room Pandemic and others have been talking for quite some time now about the importance of Republicans taking back their political party in every state. That is MAGA Republicans, the MAGA posse, people like me. And that the way to do that was to volunteer and get involved in local city and town election politics. Volunteer to be election officials, volunteer to work the polls, volunteer to man the counting rooms where absentee ballots are counted. And we, more often than not, don't have a Republican sitting there and watching how this is done to make sure that the ballots, no funny business is going on. That was one of the problems of the last election. There were very few Republicans who came out. And I blame, in a way, Trump for that and the Republican Party for that. Well, it seems that they've learned their lesson, because in this recent special election in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, who never had held public office before, he's a very successful businessman, brilliant man, he's a multimillionaire. He beat the darling of the left, Terry McAuliffe, Clinton's guy, corrupt former governor, leftist in every sense. And it wasn't supposed to happen. The reason it happened was because the Youngkin campaign, the state Republican Party of Virginia, and the National Republican Committee put a lot of muscle into fielding teams of people, thousands of people across the state, local residents, mothers, retired people, teenagers, empty nesters, people who have a little time and who want to get involved in politics and do something good and that could create genuine change to bring integrity back to the elections. They fanned out across the state. They got involved in manning the local polls. They watched the counting rooms to make sure that there was no funny ballots being counted and that there were no good ballots being thrown out, which are allegations from the last election. Whether they're true or not, the fact is it didn't happen this time, right? It's the old corporate saying, We didn't do it, and we're not going to do it going forward. And so what happened was that, combined with the fact that they put some money behind it, and they hired a staff of lawyers who are election experts to be on call, waiting by the phone, waiting in case any funny business happened in any of the polls, they could react immediately. These factors created a model by which Youngkin won, because there was no cheating, or very, very little cheating this time around. And I think that they're planning on rolling that out nationally for the midterm. It's very exciting. This is one of the most extraordinary grassroots movements I've seen in my lifetime, and I've been around a while. This is people are saying, we're not going to let any election be stolen going forward. They weren't successful in New Jersey because there you have a state that's so corrupt and you get such a rotten Republican rhino establishment with people like Chris Christie that, they just couldn't do it. They just, we found 20,000 votes. Everyone knows that was bad, right? Everyone knows it's rotten. And it's too bad the Republican candidate didn't stand up, but he didn't. Either way, this has been a model that was launched successfully, and it's an ongoing effort. Tens of thousands of people around the country are getting involved in local Republican politics. MAGA people who are going to make sure that there's no this crap happens next time. And I think that might have happened in my very own state of Massachusetts. And I think that the Massachusetts Republican Party and Republicans are energized. 57% supporting Jeff Deal after he got Trump's endorsement. Only 25% for Charlie Baker, who is a mugwump, liberal, kind of Republican in name only. I find this development to be extraordinary. The left is scratching their heads. How could this be? Jeff Deal's not stupid. He's not some nut. I think he's a former state rep. He's been in government. He's not even now that conservative. He's kind of a typical Massachusetts Republican, maybe a little bit more conservative than typical. But he's no right-winger. He's not, neither was Trump, by the way, putting that aside. The fact is that they automatically assumed that mentioning Trump's name would be poison in this state. Anissa Asabi George, running for mayor of Boston, she was endorsed by a police union, and former police commissioner Gross, happens to be African-American, by the way, who's a big Trump supporter. And they endorsed her, and I think that they set up a political action committee that gave some money to endorsing her. And she walked away from it like a Chesapeake Bay crab. She couldn't get away fast enough. Oh, I know nothing about this. How could you think that I'd support Trump? I'm a woman, and we know that Trump hates women, and I'm a minority, and we know Trump hates minorities. And she just mouthed all these same lies, I think with the hope that maybe she'd get a little pass from the Boston Globe and the corrupt liberal establishment that has run this state for so long. She thought maybe they wouldn't wipe her out. Well, the fact is that she was trounced in the election by Michelle Wu, who is an open and unabashed liberal and left-winger. And that's fine. The point is that people would rather support a real liberal than a pretend liberal, which was what Anissa Asabi George was trying to be. She was not herself. Now, had she been herself, and had she said, yes, I support many of the policies of the Trump administration, not all, but I support some of them, and I would be happy to elaborate on which ones, I think she would have won that election, right? I think that, she's taking this Trump hatred vow, like this oath. It's almost like a cult-like oath. And I think that hurt her. Well, it looks like Jeff Deal maybe has learned that lesson. He's not going that direction. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in my own state of Massachusetts. Trump, Adam Riley keeps saying that Trump got less votes against Biden than he did against Hillary Clinton. I actually don't believe that's true. I think that the real numbers actually show that he got more votes, and he got Hispanic votes and African American votes. And in fact, the biggest cities for Trump in 2020 were Lawrence and Holyoke, both overwhelmingly large Hispanic populations. So, this is a base for a Republican victory. And I think that this is a race to watch. I also want to give a shout out to Vernon Jones in Georgia, because he notes that Stacey Abrams is going to be running again for governor. She claims that the last election was stolen from her, by the way, and she never conceded. And Vernon Jones says that he's the best man to stop Stacey Abrams because the Democratic Party wants to anoint her as the next presidential candidate. That's pretty clear, given the fact that Biden is like dead in the water, and Kamala Harris is even worse. They don't have anyone, so they need to get somebody warming up in the pitcher's den, and they're pushing for Stacey Abrams. So, and she talked about corruption. We won't go into some of the election stuff that went on in Georgia. It's unbelievable. Putting that aside, Vernon Jones is a state senator, I believe, in Georgia, who is challenging, who's going to run as a Republican. He's challenging the present governor, Brian Kemp, who is, I think, corrupt and weak, and who did nothing to answer questions of impropriety during the last election. He basically papered it over, and he'd made some kind of a backroom deal with Stacey Abrams, according to Georgia politics. So he's weak, and I think that he doesn't deserve support, and he would be defeated at any rate by Stacey Abrams. So Vernon Jones, check him out. Go to his website. Happens to not only that, but he happens to be black. So, Stacey's not going to be able to play the race card against him. And I think he can attract minority votes and Republican conservative votes and a lot of crossover votes. And he has a possibility of stepping up and winning that race. And he's also very smart, very articulate, and very nice looking man. So, these factors go in politics. So those are my thoughts. There are some interesting political developments. I'm going to be getting into politics. I'm going to be getting into international politics. I'm going to be getting into philosophy and culture and economics and political issues and issues of the day on this program. The program is Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. to midnight. It's live. I'm going to be accepting call-ins. The call-in number, if you want to write this down, 617-396-4958, 617-396-4958. The program officially launches the first of next year, but I do have guests lined up next week. I've got Jay Dyer coming in tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I also want to mention that my books are available. I am self-sponsored by my own books, and they are available at Amazon Books, including my two latest books, Sociology for Conservatives and The Satanic Conspiracy, The Spectre Haunting Mankind. So check those out on Amazon Books. Charles Moscowitz, like Moscow with a Witz. It means, my grandfather's name means a son of Moses. And check it out, Amazon Books. I want to thank you for listening, everyone. I want to thank you for watching. I will be looking forward to this program starting tomorrow, more regularly, and then really full steam ahead by the first of the year. And that's all for now. God bless all of you. God bless America. Merry Christmas.